everyone. This is Donna's Happy Hour. Just a reminder to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so that you get future notifications of the videos. And please leave a comment. Thank you. Have a great day. Now, one of the questions, and I ask questions that I think the audience might want to know because I don't know the answers to this sort of thing.
Yeah.
So most of the fellows here have toured.
Yes.
And I noticed that, like, with other bands and people that I've interviewed, that touring, does that come later in the career when you become more famous? Or is it just something that doesn't happen as much?
Well, typically a band will tour to promote their new records. Typically.
Okay.
So these guys are going to the studio. They'll finish an album. Now they got to go on tour to promote it. That's typically what happens. In fact, Peter has talked to me about touring, to promote this album, even if it's solo.
Right.
Just play at different venues wherever around here, Jersey, New York, or wherever I can get to.
Right.
So that's typically what will happen. They'll go on a tour to promote their record.
Right. Because now that I'm doing this, I watch a lot of documentaries on artists. And going back in the 50s, one of the big things was getting in a bus, and touring and going from town to town to town, and they'd be on the road like 250 days out of the year.
Yep.
Is that something that you might have to do down the road?
Well, it depends on how far along I get, I suppose. Like right now I have to keep working, But if I get to a point where things are really taking off for me, then I would probably consider something like that just to promote to promote myself. Right. I'd have to finalize a band and all that kind of thing. But that's looking down the road, But it's really great to be associated with these guys. I'm not sure if any of them would even have time to tour with me, these guys that I'm on here, because they're very busy.
Right.
They're recording with all these famous people all the time.
Right.
But one of the things I love, I've become, kind of friends with Jerry Marotta, who was the drummer. And, just sitting down there with him talking, he'll tell me stories about what it was like to go on a tour with Peter Gabriel.
Right.
Or one of my all-time favorite band was the Beatles.
Right.
And Jerry played on a Paul McCartney album.
Right.
So we were sitting there having dinner one night, and I was saying to him, "You got to tell me what it's like to play with Paul McCartney, because I can't, I can't imagine."
Can't even imagine, right?
And it's just, like he would say to me, he invited me to his house over in England, and we would sit there, and he said,
"Wow,
you're a little starstruck at first, but after a while you realize, he's just a guy.
He's just a guy. I know.
A guy, But because I said, if I was sitting in a room with Paul McCartney, I probably would have a million questions to ask him, because I'm such a big fan.
Right.
But,
well, that's the thing, it's like, and I would imagine that there is somebody that Peter has that when he finally got to meet him, he felt the same way that you feel, like I think anybody would be starstruck if they met Paul McCartney.
I would think so,
Ringo Starr, Paul McCartney, Mick Jagger. There are certain people, artists that you just sit there and you go,
right. I know Peter told me a story one time. I think he was invited to be a musician at, they have the Kennedy Honors where they have all the,
Sure.
And he was on stage and he said, I'm standing there getting ready to play. And he said, I'm looking around and there's Paul Simon over there, and there's Hall & Oates over there, and there's, he's like, I'm surrounded by all these famous people. And he said it sort of took him back even a little bit.
Right.
He's played with many.
Right.
But to be sitting there with them all around you is
all
kind
around
of like, wow, that's Diana Ross over there.
Right.
And that's, all in one place.
Right.
So there are certain times where even guys like him can be starstruck.
Absolutely. And I would imagine even with Paul McCartney and Mick Jagger and any of they had people that they idolized and looked up to, and that's what influenced their music.
Right.
it's only natural. It's only, you know.
I'm looking forward to John Cobert, who plays piano. He played piano and accordion on my record.
Okay.
And he got the privilege of playing with John Lennon. And
Right.
John Lennon is my
that.
all-time favorite.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm looking forward to a day where I can sit down with him and talk to him about that experience.
Right.
You know.
Well, that would be, and like George Harrison, you know,
Yes.
I mean, when you think about just being able to say that, you know.
Right. Those are names that everybody in the world knows, whether you're a fan or not. You know those names.
Right.
They're
You know
just
those
famous,
names.
You know,
Yeah.
Just super famous people.
Yeah.
And it's
I
like,
mean,
oh my God, what was that like?
When you think about it, I mean, it's pretty amazing, you know, that a lot of these guys are still out there singing and doing, you know, at 70 plus, you know, for some of them.
Yeah. Paul McCartney is pushing 80 right now. I think he's 78, I want to say. Something like that. And he still plays.
Yeah.
It's in front of, 50,000 people and stadiums and stuff. Oh my God.
It is amazing. It really is amazing. So, you know, I have some questions that I wrote down that I try to come up with different questions for you so that every time you sit with me, you're not getting the same, questions. So let's see how I did on this one. One of the questions is, do you find that you have, like when you're doing your album, do you have a song that winds up becoming your favorite?
Favorite on the album, you mean? Like
or just in general, do you have songs that tend to be your favorite?
Well, I've written over 500 songs. So it's and so when I decide to do an album, I try to narrow that down, because you can only put so many on an album. So I try to narrow that down to some of my favorites.
Right.
So when I'm doing the album, I'm already doing songs that are my personal
that your favorites, okay.
Or possibly songs that I've gotten the best reaction from people for.
That was going to be one of my other questions, is what makes that like kind of your favorite, and what do you think determines that it makes people that it's their favorite? What do you think is the contributing factor there?
Well, I think some of my songs are very, especially my softer songs, where they tend to touch people a little bit more because they're emotional. That people can relate to them.
That
possibly.
Relate, okay.
Like the song like "Amen" I wrote is it's a love song.
Okay.
And it's something that people can relate to, because people who are in relationships or who are married or whatever, they can picture singing it to their wives, or their wives, or the wives picture their husband singing it to them.
Singing it to them. Okay.
This album here is I tend to be a little more country-ish. This album is a little bit less country. The Story Never Ends, a little less country.
Okay.
It's more it's rock, but James Taylor-ish kind of rock.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of these songs are, especially with these guys on there, are catchy.
Right.
I think that's a big thing too. You want to write a song where people will listen to it.
Right.
And they won't be able to get the song out of their head all day.
Right. That's right. So that was another question that I was going to ask, is, do you feel it's the driving beat of that song that makes it become, let's say, a #1 hit? Do you think it's that,
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the beat. I think it's
the words, the whole combination.
Sometimes people connect to the lyrics, but I think the initial things, they connect to the beat. They connect to the emotion of the song.
Right.
But I know a lot of people who will actually listen to the words, and they'll say, "Wow, this." A couple people heard my last album, Under the Whispering Tree.
Right.
And a couple things, and their comment to me was, "I love your lyrics."
Right.
So that people do listen to the words.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I know that, like, for instance, some of the songs you were singing today, the lyrics and the words are beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
And to me, and I'm no pro at this, but I would think Peter and Jerry and these guys, when you got done doing a song, did they look at you and go, "That's a #1 hit"?
Well, Peter says it to me all the time. He always says, "Wow, this this is a good one, you know.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
there's certain songs where I'll say that.
I would imagine that they know right away.
Yeah.
You know.
Jerry would put the drums down, was putting drum tracks down, and he texted me and he said, great stuff, man. You know, and I was like, thanks. You know,
Yeah.
It's great to hear somebody on that level,
right,
say something like that.
say
you know?
something. Absolutely.
Like,
absolutely.
wow, I guess I really do know what I'm doing. You know, or
yes.
I am doing the right thing.
Right. Yeah, because when artists tend to be the most insecure people.
Pretty much, yeah.
A lot of times you need that confirmation. I think in anything, honestly, is to get confirmation, whether you're building a house or you're somebody saying to you, wow, you did a really great job. It's so important to hear that, and unfortunately, we may think it, but we don't always say it,
Yeah.
Well, I have to tell you that I am absolutely going to be one of those people, and I'm hoping I get a free CD.
Nothing's free anymore, Donna.
And nothing's free in life. I know my father always told me that. But
$50 for you now.
yeah, especially if I don't get the name of the albums right.
No, I'll get you a copy.
Well, but one of the other questions is, and I think we kind of already, what in Peter's opinion makes a hit song, but I think we kind of went over that.
Yep.
And about what people relate to, and Ethel, you got to stop dinging me now.
Ethel wanted to be here today.